Septicflesh is back once again with their brutal sound along with an orchestra and a choir to bring what I personally believe is another top-notch symphonic death metal album. I'm Chainsaw and this is my review of the brand new Septicflesh album entitled Titan. I'm just going to be very straightforward with you guys and just tell you right now. I am in love with this brand new album. Titan is just 10 tracks of just epicness. Just hearing Septicflesh once again with an orchestra and a choir on top of that just makes me happy. I just love this band so much. I discovered them with their 2008 Communion album, and I was hooked right in. I was just hooked, and I was wanting more. And The Great Mass was another great record. But I knew I was going to like Titan. I knew before I went into the album I was going to like Titan. I knew because this band is just too good to not make me not like the album. I knew I was going to like it. But what I did not expect was right off the bat, the very first listen of the album, I'm already hooked. I'm already in love. I want more. And then on repeat of this album, repeating this album again, listening to particular tracks for certain things, I'm falling more in love with it. This album just keeps delivering to me what I want from Septicflesh and even more. It feels like that the songwriting has really stepped up and have really went to the next level in certain areas. And entire songs just feel like they're on another level compared to past releases, in my personal opinion. The orchestra, this is the third time the orchestra that they have hired has come back once again to record the orchestrate parts throughout this record. And there's more involvement with the orchestra, and there's choirs as well. There's even a children's choir, which is the first time Septicflesh has done this before, has brought on a children's choir to basically help out with these songs. In a sense, Septicflesh is not the actual band themselves. Septicflesh is the guys themselves within the band Septicflesh, along with the orchestra and the actual choirs they have brought on to do these albums. So in a sense, Septicflesh is basically 100 plus members, because just taking away the orchestra and the choirs and all this other stuff and just leaving the guys, it's not the same. What really brings this band to another level and what makes me love them is the fact that they incorporate these things. They incorporate the choirs. They incorporate the orchestra. They do all these things to bring us what I believe is top-notch symphonic death metal. And what I like to say, it's just simply orchestra metal, in a sense. This album is jam-packed with what I love from them. It has the darkness, it has the heaviness, it's got the brutal riffs, it's got the blast beats, the growls, and the actual singing from the vocals are insane. And I'm just remembering of the past releases and what makes me love them, and I'm hearing it again in Titan. But I feel like that they're really pushing themselves to do more. And like I said before, the orchestra is more involved. And what I really like is that they are including in a special, order, if you buy this album, they're including a bonus CD with just the orchestra playing the songs. Just the orchestra, nothing else. And that just sounds amazing, and I'm going to pick up that version, because that's how much the orchestra is involved, that they're having their own bonus CD within certain releases of this album. That is amazing. Listening to this album, you can definitely tell that Septicflesh has once again really caught magic in a bottle, or whatever that term is, because this album for me keeps getting better. It keeps making more sense to me. I'm understanding things. The lyrical content is very dark and menacing and what you'd expect from Septicflesh, and I just keep saying to myself, this album is so great. And then I started more thinking about it. Is this album contender of album of the year? And that's a pretty interesting question. But listening to this album for a couple days now in a row and repeating it a couple times each day, I am just more in love with this album, because I love orchestra music and I love the band Septicflesh, and the two combined together along with the choirs just makes it even better. Titan is an album you have to go listen to right now. If you've not heard this album, if you've not heard anything, even if you heard a couple songs, you heard a single, this album deserves your attention right now. Go listen to it right now and come back to me, and then we'll continue with this review, because this album deserves your attention, even if you've not heard this band. Titan is a mighty force, and Titan is an epic album, and Titan is an album that is worthy of that name, Titan. It's mighty, it's big, it's in your face, it's heavy, it's intense. It really is. Let's go through some of the my favorite tracks, some of my favorite tracks, and give you a little bit of an idea of why I love these songs and all that. Then we'll go to the actual band members themselves, which I have to say a little something about that. War in Heaven, track number 1. If this song does not get you excited and you're not instantly in love with the sound, then the rest of this album you're not going to enjoy. But for me, War in Heaven gave me everything that I wanted and basically gave me really high hopes for the rest of this album, because there's the intense, there's the intensity of Septic Flesh is what I was trying to say. And then the orchestra is very involved with this track. And then the choir, the actual choir, comes in at the end to give this, like, epic ending to this track. And then it sets you off into track number 2, which is Burn. And I love Burn because then there's more of the actual involvement within the actual chorus of the singing part of Septic Flesh. Not the choirs, but the actual band member himself that actually does it. And what I really like about Burn is that there's an actual section I consider a very small guitar solo, but it could be considered a melody, a little guitar melody, is that there's like a little bit of like what it sounds like acoustic guitar, and then bam, there's like this really epic guitar melody bit, or solo, whatever you want to call it, and the orchestra comes in, and it's a beautiful section that goes on and repeats again with the drums more involved, and it's just a beautiful thing to go right back into the chorus. I just love that section so much. That guitar melody section is just so beautiful. It just sounds so good. And it shows that they're incorporating the orchestra more right away there on top of the first track, because this epic guitar melody could have been by itself, but they add in the orchestra as well to make it even sound more beautiful. It's just so great. The production, let's say right off the bat, the production is epic. What do you expect? Order of Dracul, I think it's how you pronounce it. Of course, that is the single. That was pretty good. Prototype, track number 4, includes the children's choir that I mentioned a little bit earlier in this review. So that's within the chorus itself, the actual growls, the growling from Septic Flesh, which is a very interesting growl that growling vocals that we know. It's very unique growling vocals I've heard in metal, so it's very obvious when it's Septic Flesh. But the growling vocals along with the children's choir that's basically singing what he's growling in the lyrics in the chorus was really cool to hear the difference. So that was pretty cool. Track number 4, Dogma, of course. Prometheus, track number 6. Track number 7, the actual title track, Titan, is a mighty track. It is so good. I love the guitar playing on that song, and the drums especially as well is very good. Track number 8, of course, Confessions of a Serial Killer. Basically all the songs, but I enjoyed that. But track number 9, Ground Zero, has some more great stuff there. A lot of great guitar parts, a great guitar melody. The chorus is fantastic once again. I love the intro. Intro for Prometheus is really good as well. I forgot to mention that. I love that little intro. It's very eerie, kind of dark, but it's setting you up for something to come. The First Immortal, the final track, is what you'd expect. It's the big ending, the big bang. It's just it's over. So we're gonna end off with a mighty epic track, and so it's what you get. The First Immortal is just a beautiful song in its own right. All these songs are good in their own way. Man, these songs, they're so good. I'm thinking, the more I listen to this album, the more I'm really thinking, is this gonna be my favorite album from the band? I don't know. It could be. Before I go into the actual band members themselves, I do want to say one thing. Then I'll give my little thoughts at the end. Of course, to kind of sum it all up. Vocal crap there. That, out of respect for the band members, I'm not going to pronounce their names, because if I try, I'm going to butcher them, and I don't want to do that. That's very disrespectful in my personal opinion, so I'm just going to say the actual, instruments and the vocals as well. So, of course, in the description is going to be the orchestra they hired, and of course the band members themselves and what they play, so you know who I'm talking about when I talk about the instruments and all that. So make sure you check that description, because I'm not going to try to pronounce their names out of respect for them, so just letting you guys know ahead of time. So okay, anyways, the growling vocals are of course back once again. They're very heavy, they're very dark, it's brutal sounding, and I love every second of it. It just sounds so good, and hearing it along with the actual guitar playing and the rest of the actual band, and then the orchestras and all that, it just sounds more epic. The words he's saying, it just sounds so much better because of what's happening behind him. The instrumentation, the music, the actual music that's behind him is actually what's elevating these lyrics. So got to give that. The actual singing vocals, I wish there was a little bit more of the actual singing vocals as well. The choir is a different thing completely, but the actual singing parts from Septic Flesh, I wish there was a little bit more on this album. But that's, I guess, one little gripe, but not really. But when it was actually there, it was really great. So got to give it there. The guitar playing is phenomenal. There's a lot of great guitar parts. The actual guitar tone and the actual guitar production is really good, so you get to hear every riff and every little melody thing, and all the cool stuff the guitars are doing. You can hear very clearly through this album. So good headphones is a really good thing as well. The bass playing is pretty good. I wish the bass was turned up a little bit more in some sections, because the bass does get kind of put into the back because the drums are very intense, and we all know the bass is intense as well. But when the guitars and the vocals and the drums and the 80+ orchestra, and on top of that the optional of the choirs coming in, also just all that sound, it's really hard to kind of hear that one instrument, the bass, come through. But give props to him, to the bass player, because it is some intense playing as well. The drums is what you'd expect. The drums are heavy, and they are just very fast-paced. There's a lot of fast-paced aggressiveness drumming going on here. It's what you'd expect from Septic Flesh. If you expected simple drum patterns and stuff like that, well, I don't know what you're thinking that Septic Flesh is, because there is so much going on behind the drum kit that it's insane. I'm literally listening to some sections and going, how is he playing that? I don't know, but how is he doing that? So the band just sounds great. The production is great. The orchestra and the choirs they've hired to do this record. The orchestra, like I said, back for the third time to record on the third Septic Flesh album, starting with Communion, The Great Mass, and now Titan. The orchestra sounds beautiful. Like I've been saying throughout this record, I've talked a lot about it within this review, but the orchestra is definitely a very high point. They're more involved on this record. The choirs are great as well. They really do step up, and they really do enhance these songs when they are actually there, singing these lyrics and singing these lines. So got to give them props to the children choir and the actual main choir themselves. One little quick note, the actual orchestra, there were so many people that were, like, just talking about the orchestra, not the choirs, but the orchestra, there were so many players that played on this album that they had to be separated in 2 sessions in order to get everybody to be recorded, because the room, they didn't have enough space for everybody to fit in that one room. So they actually had to separate it into 2 groups in order to record everybody for this album. So, my ending thoughts. Titan is a very epic album. It deserves your attention, like I've said. It is a beautiful album. It is a heavy album. It is a dark album. It has what you'd expect from Septic Flesh and more. I feel like they stepped up the bar. And of course, this is all my opinion, so I'm curious to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What's your favorite song? What do you think about the album? Anything you want to tell me about what your thoughts on Titan are, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Chainsaw, and this is my review of Titan. That was it. So, thank you guys again for watching. If you liked the video, like the video. If you want to see me or my stuff, click my name or subscribe to see more. Thank you guys for watching. Once again, see ya.